What is core stability and why is it important? That's what we're going to be looking at in this tutorial, and what we're going to cover is, first of all, what is core stability? Next, why is it important? And then finally, how do we train it? If you want to build your core strength, endurance or stability, please do click the link below and go through to my How to Build Core Strength and Stability online 12-week program, and you can get started today. Number one, what is core stability? Muscle timing that results in smooth movement. It's not a normal definition that most people think is core stability, and it requires a specific way of training it. So as an example, this plank up into a side plank would be described as a core stability exercise. There is obviously strength that is required for it and endurance that is required for it. But if we look at the definition of muscle timing that results in smooth movement, there is most definitely a stability aspect to it. Because if I'm in the plank and I've got my shoulders and hips lined up, when I lift my arm off the floor like this, I want my hips and my shoulders to stay in the same position. I don't want them to be wobbling all over the place, because that wobbling is an indicator of instability, of compensation, where the muscles aren't timing correctly, so it's not allowing me to move my arm smoothly, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be either jerking it back there and moving it very quickly because of that compensation, and then it's not going to allow me to roll my body up into the side plank as I'm doing here and then roll back smoothly. If all my muscles are timing correctly, that movement will be very measured and smooth all the way through. So why is it important? Number one, it reduces load on the spine because the muscles are timing correctly. So this is another example of core stability, of when we do like a farmer's carry. So if we've got these big heavy weights in our hands and our muscles aren't timing, you're going to see the hips moving all over the place. You're going to see the body stooping and dropping down. What we want to be able to do is get the muscles timing correctly, so again that movement is smooth, but when the muscles time correctly and lock the spine down from both sides, it reduces the load on the spine because multiple muscles are going to be contracting all at the same time, spreading the load out. And when we can spread the load out, that's how we then go about reducing the load on the spine, so it's going to make the spine healthier. So this, in some respects, is the most fundamental part to the Core Strength and Stability online program, because we're looking to build the stability and get the muscles timing number one. Once we can get them timing, we can build the strength and the endurance into them. But first of all, we've got to get them timing correctly, which reduces the load on the spine, minimizes risk of injury. And that's number two, which is reduce risk of injury. So to expand on what I talked about before, if we take this example of the sailboat, so this is going to be our spine up here, and these are the various muscle attachments that go across the spine, and what you can see are all these wires that come down front, side, back, again holding the spine in place. So when we can get all of these muscles activated or tensioned and balanced between that tension, because again, if we've got more tension at the back, we're going to be pulling the spine to the back. If we're going to be pulling the mass to the back. If we've got more tension at the front, we're going to be pulling it more to the front, left, more to the left, right, more to the right. So we've got to not only get them timing properly, we've got to get them balanced. And again, this is a key part of the 12-week program. So when we are doing these types of exercises, when we are minimizing the load on the spine, we're reducing the risk on the spine, because we've got these muscles, the QL, the multifidus, the longissimus, the iliocostalis, the obliques, the transverse abdominis, the rectus abdominis, the obliques. We've got all these muscles, which are all these guy wires, the latissimus dorsi, which would be another one. All these guy wires need to be balanced all the way around, so we're not only reducing the load on the spine, we're also minimizing the risk because that load is spread out as well. Number three, it allows us to build greater strength because we've got more muscles. Because they're more balanced, they're able to spread the load out more, which is going to use less of the muscle to manage all of that load. So we can then put more effort into lifting heavy weights off the floor. And this is just simply what is known as motor unit recruitment. Because if we've got unstable muscles, the body isn't going to send signals down these motor units to fire the big powerful muscles, because it's a bit like a fuse box in a house. If there's too much electricity going in, the body's just going to shut it down. If there is potential for the kettle to set on fire because there's so much electricity going in, it's going to shut it down. And that's what our body's doing. It's not going to allow us to lift heavy weight if there's a compromised part of our core, if it's going to injure it. So what it will do is it will shut the big powerful muscles down to be able to maintain that, let's just say, health to the joint, health to the muscle, etc. But when we have good core stability and the muscles are locking everything down and they are stabilizing joints, and once we have built great strength and stability through the torso, it's going to allow us to use our big strength muscles, the quads, the glutes, the lats, the pecs, that much more effectively to build that core strength and endurance on top of the stability that we've already built in. So it's key that we get all of these right, because they are going to be able to allow us to build on top of it. So what we'll talk about next is how we then go about building on top. And finally, more efficient movement. If we've got stronger, our muscles are more stable, our movement is going to be that much more efficient. So when we are walking or running, we're going to be using less energy and getting more out of it. It's the same when we're lifting. We're going to be able to put more energy into it and make that lift much more efficient if we can maintain the postures, so on and so forth. So all these 4 reasons are key to being able to maintain good core stability throughout the body and maintain proper stability. So how do we train it? Number 1, we need to start simple. We need to start with various balance style exercises. So you can see here, you've got the bird dog coming across, sort of working the body sort of both sides. We've then got just balancing on one knee, which is hip stability, spine stability. And then we've got single leg exercises in here as well with the glute bridge. What you can also do is add in hip aeroplanes or static single leg RDLs. Basically, anything single limbed is going to be effective because we're going to be challenging the balance of the body, which is what we want to be able to do with stability. But what we've got to start with are these static postures here, and then move into more dynamic postures like the single leg RDL, like the hip aeroplanes, so on and so forth. So we're not just building and doing exercises because we've been told they're unstable inherently. We need to be able to build it in a systematic way using static movements or static postures and then building into dynamic movements. So that is essentially how we train it, and there are some examples of exercises to begin with where you can start doing it. So number 1, what have we learnt? What is core stability? It's muscle timing that allows smooth movement. Why is it important? It reduces load on the spine, reduces risk of injury to the spine, builds greater strength, and builds greater efficiency in movement. And then how do we go about training it? Number 1, using static postures like half kneeling positions, bird dog, single leg bridging, and then we can move into more dynamic balance style exercises, which are more dynamic using movements like the single leg RDL or the hip aeroplane. If you've enjoyed this content, hit the like button below. If you've learned something new, hit the thanks button below. If you want to watch more of these tutorials, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. And then if you have a question or a comment, please do leave it in the comment section below.